Hello everybody. I'm starting the video in the car because I had to go make a house call to get it. This is the same Boston Green 1998 E36 M3 4.5 you've seen me work on in the past. I think the last video we had was where the shifter fell apart on the highway, but we got all that put back together, and now it's due for the release bearing is really bad, but it's getting a full OEM clutch kit and then all functional fluids except for engine oil, oddly, because it's not due for an oil change, I don't believe. But yeah, you can hear that throwout bearing groan. And these coilovers sound worse than they are, but they are pretty harsh. My M3 was not anywhere near like this. I'm sure you can hear the release bearing if you're a headphone user. It is audible. But she made it. If I hold the clutch pedal a little bit, you can really hear it. Gross. No, I've never seen that one before in an E36. All right, she's inside. I'm not gonna bother taking any of this apart yet. Yes, I will. That'll save some time later. Pull the knob and boot now, because obviously it's getting a clutch. All right, careful to not hit the CCV or damage anything. I'm gonna take advantage of the fact that this has a strut bar, because the first thing that happens when you take the transmission out of one of these is the engine tilts way forward. Again, just a precautionary thing, because I know I'm gonna deal with it once it gets up in the air. I've got the lift under it now. I'll lift it up and we'll get cracking. A few things, looks like they've maybe bumped a couple parking spots or something. I'll do the best I can to try to get that back together for them. That's not great. Yeah, we'll get the cross brace pulled off. I'm going to immediately get this exhaust hardware soaking in PB Blaster. Yep. I'm not sure if I'll try to pull these. I probably won't. Usually the rear is pretty easy to pull on an E36. It's just oh yeah, this active auto work can is nice. So I'll definitely pull the entire exhaust. It basically consists of nothing but 13s and 10s. I have to remind myself, okay, the O2 plugs are right there. It's been a while since I've worked on an actual OBD2 car that's still OBD2. Looks like the trans mounts are a little bit haggard, but not too bad. We'll pull the slave cylinder off, that's right there. Pair of 13s, dip the back of the engine down, and we'll get the trans off, get the clutch replaced. And after that, functional fluids. All right, just very barely threaded on the front. I've never worked on a car that still had the plastic cap. Very carefully removed. Center is loosened, so just the two 13s right here. Just take those brackets off, they'll usually stay. Now we've got four 13s here, two on each side. And I'm gonna get my hydraulic hoist there underneath the exhaust. Whew. Sorry, I've been working with my arms above my head and I'm out of shape, so extra good. But anyway, yeah, longer extension, grab the 13s and we'll get the exhaust off. But the convertible / M3 brace came off just fine. Those are 16s and 13s. OBD2 downpipe nuts are 15s. 10s and 13s right here. 13s in the back. All right, beginning the service position. The exhaust is off. Next up, I'm going to be going for the heat shield, which is, I believe, all 10s. That should come off pretty easy. After that, I'll be working on the drive shaft and then the trans mount as well. These are all 13s. There's 4 that actually hold it to the car. There's 2 that hold it to the mounts. These are all, I believe, 18 mils on the trans. And then in the back, I believe they're 17s right here. So, yeah, you can just kind of bungee up the drive shaft out of the way. We'll see when we get in there. This car is so far cooperating really, really well. Once I get the trans tilted down, I am going to be pulling both of the 13s off of the slave cylinder right here, getting that out, letting it dangle. But again, next up is going to be our heat shield, so let's get that done. All right, so we'll pull this brace off. It's 4 13s. After that, I'm not going to deal with that yet. I'm going to deal with dropping the trans down with those 6 13s, and then I'm actually going to detach the drive shaft from the guibo with a wrench on the front side, just an open face box wrench, open face or box wrench, and then an impact on the other side. I typically like to leave the guibo on the trans and pull the drive shaft out naked. I have to deal with this a little bit. After that, I will pull the center support bearing stuff out. You can, I think, do the clutch without taking this out, but take it out. It saves time. So let's get all that done. We'll come back to it. All right, sorry, back to it. I had to take a call advising some other service. I elected to split the drive shaft. This one's got a factory witness mark, so just make sure if you ever take apart a 2-piece drive shaft, you line it up exactly as it was, because otherwise it will shake real bad. Next up, the bitch clip on the top of the transmission. We're gonna have to deal with that. I'll probably pull this clip off the actual bottom of the shift selector rod. I do have the slave out. Reverse lights, another big one. We'll get that taken off. This is actually a really early MTF LT1 car. I didn't even know they started doing lifetime fluid fills on these prior to 1999. So that's obviously bogus. We will be filling that with Redline MTL. Don't ever forget this. There's a little 10 mil regular hex drive bolt on the front. That'll stump you if you've never worked on one of these before. After that, I'm going to start with these E10s. There are 3 of them along the bottom of the transmission. Then I'm going to go to the starter, which I believe are E12s. Those kind of suck. And then there's 4 E14s. There's 2 up just on the back of the cylinder head area. And then there's 1 right up here and 1 right there. Once those are removed, I'll get the trans jack, which is this bad boy, propped underneath the back of this ZF5 310. And we'll get it ripped out, get the clutch slapped in, and then we can move on to fluids. I'm going to try to just cannonball this all. I really don't have enough time in the week to deal with a lot. So I do apologize ahead of time if I skip a step. Let's quick look at the bitch clip and see if we can get a look at the bolts I'm talking about. So here is the bitch clip. This, really tough to see. There's a little pin on the top. So you actually want to slide a standard screwdriver in underneath the clip on the front and then pry it to the side. And this whole thing will rotate up counterclockwise, and then you can pull it out to the left here. This little clip right here, zoom back out, a little bit easier. You wedge in between this little yoke spot and the bottom, and you can just pry that clip right off. The bolts, you can see the bottom of the 2. There's both the starter bolts. Looks like we won't be able to see. Okay, there's the bottom of the cylinder head bolts. The top one you can't see. So it's all relying on feel, essentially. I use a 4-foot long socket extension and a U-joint, not a swivel, to get those on there. It sucks. So I almost always start with the worst bolts first. The starter's not too bad on a 96 or up because it's got a threaded body. Pre-96 starters, oh my goodness, those suck without a buddy. But yeah, we'll kind of start there. I do have plenty of room to work in front of this drive shaft, so that's awesome. But yeah, shifter first, then I'll start going bell housing bolts. We'll get this trans ripped off in no time. All right, pro tip. Once you get the starter bolts out, and I'm not advising you do this to your starter because it could damage it, but that flat right there on the left, that's the back of the Bendix and solenoid. Take your extension and lightly hammer your extension into it to pop the starter dowel out of the case. So you're hammering on the other side of this to pop the starter away from the transmission, because otherwise that will hang on, by the B plus cable and the trigger wire while you're trying to pull your trans out, and it is a nightmare to get it to unseat. Oh. If you're somehow lucky and the car you're working on is as nice as this one, and it's clearly had a starter done before, easy peasy. All right, now I'm gonna move on to the rest of these little guys. Sorry, my phone won't zoom the hell out. There we go. And then the two more large ones. I do have the front one already removed, and I will get the trans jack under it momentarily. All right. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's just as smoked as I thought it was gonna be. And there's our clutch. 6mm Allen's to get that off. And then, yeah, the rest is pretty much just reverse of removal. Obviously, I will be servicing the oil on this transmission, but I'm gonna be doing that when it's back in the car because I can't get out the fill plug here. Obviously, new release bearing, because this one is turbo smoked. And I do also have a new clutch pivot pin if this one is worn. If not, you don't touch them. It's kind of like a rear main seal. You don't fix it if it's not broken. But yeah, that wasn't too bad. It's 5:15. I think I've only been going at this for an hour and a quarter, so a lift certainly helps. Holy Hannah. Sorry, that's a hard process to try to film alone, so I didn't. The trans is back in. I'm gonna get a couple bolts in there. Slap the slave in, make sure the travel feels normal. If that does, then I'm gonna proceed to put all the rest of the bolts in. Oh my God. This transmission's like not that heavy. It's maybe 80 pounds. But lifting it above your head is not all that fun. All right, we are more or less all buttoned up. I have not put the brace back in or tucked up the O2 wires, but I do want to make sure everything looks and feels okay with the clutch. So I'm gonna pop it back down, excuse me, get in it, and make sure it engages okay. We're all good. Oh, hey, look, still, okay. You get to be surprised with me, but given how tight that drain plug was, this oil is not original. That actually looks okay. Not too bad. Still not new though, worth doing. All right, got my MT90, and now begins the process of filling. I still remember the first time somebody showed me the double wrench trick. I think it was a drive shaft still attached to a differential on my floor from an E30, and I couldn't get it off. And I told the dude, if you can get that drive shaft separated, you can have the diff for like $100 less than I was asking. Grabs two of my wrenches, gives it a crack with a hammer, off he went. I'm like, come on. Just like that. Give me a lever long enough and I can move the world. Gonna remove the fill plug all the way so we don't get the glug effect. Oh, and she is full. Well, the diff doesn't look too great. This definitely needed new fluid. Anytime you got a clutch type limited slip differential, I kind of expect that though. Power steering looks by far the worst of them all. Yuck. 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 I was just having a little rant because the product literally designed to house and pressurize a brake fluid reservoir has a hose that just completely crumbles in contact with brake fluid. So, oh, it was flowing. Wonder what's going on here. Anyway, bleeding the brakes now. Okay, engine oil, gotta top it up, put the filter cap back on, bleed screw out, top up the coolant. Once I put the drain plug back in, I gotta drain a little bit more brake fluid out of the reservoir and top up the power steering. We should be good. Man, tested my stamina on this project. It's been a while since I've done this much on one car in one night. So I popped a couple holes in these just to get some zip ties through. It's better than the nothing they currently have, keeping this dragging around. Now, final item, I'm actually re-bleeding the power steering again, working the rack back and forth because it's still pretty gross looking. So after this, I'll top that up, go for a quick drive just to make sure it's not going to explode. And then we are well and truly done, hopefully. Nice. All right, did the old 7 and 19 pin trick, reset the oil service, and gave them a super official oval bore oil change reminder sticker. Shifter is ridiculously short throw on this thing. Clutch works though. Close up the garage and let's take a quick rip. Everything seems hunky-dory.